Hello and welcome to Geography e-learning for March 25th. Getting back into, what has Russia become today? The Soviet Union fell apart. Where are they at today? How have they progressed? How have they changed? Um, we left off yesterday talking about privatization, the idea that the government was starting to sell off those government run businesses. They are trying to get things back into private hands once the Soviet Union falls apart. So they changed from government run to private businesses. And there's been a lot of failures in that just because you had people taking over businesses that really did not know how to handle that. They have to kind of learn as they go. And unless you're somebody who's extremely wealthy, it's really difficult to do that. You throw in the mindset of people still relying on the government. You throw in the idea of those few really, really, really wealthy people um, kind of being able to do whatever they want to do. You get some corruption. A lot of those factories that were left over, we've already talked about how if it's a Soviet factory, it wasn't kept up, it wasn't in good shape, it wasn't good technology, and that's really what they're left with. So a lot of a good can come from privatization, but it's going to be really, really slow to get to that point. You saw the standard of living, for example, drop about 40% uh, to where 40% of the population was living below what we would call in the West the poverty line. So you had some really tough beginning. A lot of people like to think, oh, well, hey, we'll become democratic and everything will be better. The reality is it's a very, very, very slow process. Healthcare wise, they've struggled here as well. Death rate in Russia today is at almost double what it is here in the United States. The average person lives about 13 years less. Right after the fall of the Soviet Union, you saw major increases in alcoholism, drug abuse, divorce, suicide. You still see those things today, but a lot of it is in what we would call the older population, that population that lived under communism. It's also that population that was now in living in a world where the government was not providing them with those things. So alcoholism, drug abuse, those were things that were people were going to turn to try and make them feel better about their situation. Divorce, suicide, the result of the stresses that come with now I have to provide for myself. Ultimately, over the last decade or so, 10, 15 years, you've seen the population decrease by about 3 million. Usually, in places with population decrease, you're looking at a place that's got a civil war or something like that going on. So they really struggled with that transition from communism to democracy. But like we said yesterday, the more and more people you get who are in positions of control that have never lived under communism, the more you're seeing that improve. Environmental problems. The Soviet was never a place there. The environment was going to be a priority. So a lot of their resources have been severely depleted because it was just take, 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 take. A lot of pollution is going to come with it. Really, throughout the country, the worst of it is in Siberia because it was kind of a hey, you know what? Not a lot of people live in Siberia. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and that's going to make it a little bit easier to be a big polluter. Things like lung cancer, very, very high, especially in children. You look at the area around where Chernobyl was, that's going to see a dramatic increase in a lot of those types of things. Oil spills, industrial pollution, they were all pretty bad. If you look where a lot of those things were kind of centered, it's going to be around bodies of water. Lake Baikal, one of the most polluted bodies of water in the world, the Volga River, the Barents Sea. You get a lot of old Navy stuff there. So it's just become a really, really, really tough situation when it comes to pollution.